conversation on public record.
Yeah, well, we are on air.
Yeah.
Network here, Issa?
What was that?
The network, Wi-Fi?
Oh, yeah, it works.
It's Issa?
Oh, no, it's the
Because that's an unprotected one.
COI Public.
I didn't see it. I hadn't done internet to do that in a long, long time.
Dear, couldn't print all that out if I tried.
IPv?
That one right there, yeah.
COI?
Yep.
Okay.
City of
Are
Issaquah.
we on?
Yeah, I have it on all my other devices. It's the first time I had to think about it in 6
Are
years.
we?
We're on the air.
Okay. Well, without our fearless leader, welcome everybody to the April 23rd meeting of the Planning Policy Commission. Welcome everybody that's here in the audience. There is going to be a public hearing today. Thank you so much for your interest in coming this evening. First of all, we have on our agenda an approval of the minutes for March 5th. Do I have a motion on the floor?
Not yet. There is one issue that I wanted to correct in the minutes on page 7 of 164 in our packets.
If we have a motion, then we can have a discussion.
I'll make a motion to.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, now a discussion.
All right. As far as discussion, on page 7 of 164 in our packets, under Vineet Wahi's paragraph, just want to correct the end of the third line that it is not a detention pond, but a retention pond.
Anything else?
Nothing from me.
So, we have a motion on the floor. We have a, with the exception of the new change in wording, that just a correction. It really doesn't change the minutes, but it does make a change. So, all those in favor of approving the minutes with the clarification from detention to retention, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Everybody is approved, or that the minutes are approved. So we're going to go, and before we start the public hearing tonight, we are going to have several presentations to see what the city is doing and what their plans are. So the first presentation we have this evening is David Rosen, and he's going to talk about the Peter Rosen.
My brother's David. How'd you know?
The wetland rating system that has to be changed based on what the state is doing. So, Peter?
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Peter Rosen. I'm the city's environmental planner. And so I'm here tonight for some proposed amendments to the city's critical area regulations and to the wetlands section of that specifically. And so the State Department of Ecology adopted a new wetland rating system, and our current code references the 2004 wetland rating system. So the purpose of the amendments is to reference in our code the 2014 new Department of Ecology wetland rating system. DOE has written the wetland rating system, and it provides a common, technical, scientifically validated manual and a method that all jurisdictions and agencies can use to, and it's used to characterize and measure wetland functions. There's 3 wetland functions: water quality, hydrologic, and habitat. And so the wetland rating form gives scores to these different functions, and that then determines the wetland category. And depending on the wetland category, that the wetland category determines wetland buffer widths and also mitigation requirements. So if you have a higher quality wetland, one that provides high quality ecological functions, the buffers requirements are greater, and if the wetland is being impacted, the mitigation requirements are greater. So the amendments really are just to adopt the wetland rating system. It's not at all intended to change buffer requirements. I want to be clear about that. DOE, when they devised the new system, they went out to over 200 wetlands using the existing system and the new one and scored them to determine that there wouldn't really be an effect on buffers. So the amendments, the first part of the amendments is just the description of the categories of the wetlands. And then the second part of the amendments goes into the to the buffer requirements, and it just changes the scores of the wetlands because of the new scoring system. So that's really the gist of what the amendments entail is just those two things: is the description of the different categories, and then changing the scoring to correspond it to buffers, so that the buffers are not changing. It's just the scoring that's changing. So, and it's pretty much required that the city adopt this. There, you know, if the city really had some major objections to it, we could work with DOE to make some changes. But as I mentioned at the outset, it's been devised as a common methodology for all jurisdictions, so that all the agencies, the Army Corps of Engineers, the state Washington Department of Ecology, and local jurisdictions are all using a common methodology to characterize and rate wetlands. Here to answer any questions from the commission.
Go ahead.
I just have one small question. Under 18.10.620, under the proposed amendment, paragraph A1, it seems that just for wording and smooth flow, we could take paragraph A1 and just move that whole sentence back into paragraph A, which I think would make the whole statute read better. It's kind of a lead into the categories and explains.
Sorry, I'm not following where you're talking about, which section you're talking about.
So 18.10.620,
Yes.
paragraph A1, which is currently reads as stricken from the statute, from the new statute. Wetlands as defined by this chapter shall be classified into category 1 through 4 as follows. I would propose taking that sentence and reinserting it at the end of paragraph A, and then leaving the rest as follows, because where it currently stands, we just talk about that it contains some method for determining the wetland category. But as far as readability, I think leaving that wording from paragraph A1 and moving it back into paragraph A would just provide a little bit more clarity in the statute overall.
When I was doing this, I was kind of debating whether to keep that sentence or not. So I think that's that would be useful. It doesn't change any of the context or the substance of the amendments, and it might make it more clear. So I think that's probably a good recommendation.
So does the state have any requirements for the language, that it has to be exactly the same, or can you basically do your own thing?
The language regarding the categories, the description of the categories of the wetlands comes straight from the state. And I think there would be a bit of a problem with changing some of that. I mean, unless there was a good
I just
reason
mean
to
the
do that.
description.
But yeah, so the description of the categories of the wetlands comes straight from the state and from the wetland rating system.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have one just overarching question. Do you know, or are you aware of what the impetus was to the move on the new rating system? It just seems a little arbitrary, as opposed to moving from a 0 to 100 to a 9 to 27.
Well, I don't know necessarily in terms of the scoring. I mean, there's a lot of changes to the questions in the form, and I think they just wanted to simplify some of the scoring. But I I think that the reason for overall for the changes is because of some of the changes in the science and wetland science regarding how to quantify ecological functions that wetlands provide. So that was the impetus for the change. It went through a long process with DOE of peer review, scientific peer review, and so it's really based around more accurately measuring wetland ecological functions.
Okay, so just keeping with best available science.
Yes.
Going from 0 to 100 to 9 to 28 kind of shortens the ability to be, it makes it more clear that to make it closer together than having this wide variety of 100 different, well, you're 98 instead of 92, so it's kind of shortens that as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anybody else? Thank you,
Okay.
Peter. Next, we have the infamous Christopher Wright to talk about changes in the firewood stipulation in the municipal code.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, my name is Christopher Wright, and I'm with the city's Development Services Department. And I am here to present to you a proposed code amendment having to do with the storage of firewood in residential areas. And the kind of the impetus, the origin of this code amendment does come from issues in a particular neighborhood, and there are some residents from that neighborhood here tonight. So when I'm done, you'll have a chance to kind of, I think, hear both sides of that story. But what we're proposing, as far as what the city proposes, is pretty straightforward. And there's two kind of main goals. One is it's mostly clarification that would list the cutting, storage, and sale of firewood as prohibited as a home occupation, as a home business. And that's, like I said, there's mostly clarification because as our code has been for a long time, we have not allowed home occupations that have outdoor storage or that are exceptionally loud or are more than 500 square feet. So those are all criteria that are already in the code for home occupations. And there's been several that have been listed as prohibited, like, auto repairs and, manufacturing kind of stuff. And so this would just be clarifying and adding the sale of firewood as not permitted as a home occupation. The other part, which is kind of more significant, has to do with for firewood that's for personal use, then regulating how much you can have and then where and how it is stored on your lot. And you'll see in the proposed code amendment, there's a maximum of 5 cords of wood that would be allowed to be stored on a residential property. And there's nothing particularly magical about that number. We did some research and we found that say between 4 and 5 cords of wood may be enough to provide sole heat for an average size house in the Northwest for maybe a couple of years. And that would allow some to be dried while some is being used. So, like I said, that was how we came up with that number. But I think more importantly than that is where and how the wood would be stored. And what we're proposing is that it be stored in the side or rear yard, not stacked higher than 6 feet. And mostly that is most similar to, and that we encourage screening as well. And where that all came from is most similar to the storage of like a boat or a trailer or an RV on a residential lot. That has similar language in that it needs to be stored in the side or the rear yard, and screening is encouraged. So that's where that wording came from. But like I said, it's pretty straightforward. It seems to be a reasonable amendment that would then be established citywide. If you have any questions, I'm available.
What prompted this?
Well, like I said, there's been an issue in a neighborhood with wood sales being used as a home occupation, and also how that's being stored. You'll hear more about it in a minute. But that's where it came from. And we looked at some other cities too to see if they had similar regulations, and we didn't find a whole lot, but there are a few other cities that have similar regulations.
So you said you didn't find a lot, so can you explain on that? I mean,
Yeah, well, we looked at, we kind of asked around to see what other cities had, just to get an idea of, whether there are size limits or storage limits. And there were several cities that also said that prohibited storage in the front yard and limited it to side and rear. What we didn't find is another city that specified a maximum, although a couple cities had 3 cords as a rule of thumb.
how about others that regulated the home occupation or the occupation?
Yeah, we didn't find that anywhere.
Is there any reason that storage or sale of firewood as opposed to cutting? I mean, you talked of noise complaints. Is there any reason that simply storage or sale of firewood would have a need to be regulated in and of itself, as opposed to the cutting?
Well, like I said, for home occupations today, no outdoor storage is permitted. So there's no other home occupations that allow outdoor storage. So this is just in keeping with that. But like I said, another thing with a home occupation, the main thing is to maintain the residential character, right? That is supposed to look, feel, sound like a house, right? And that the business is just kind of secondary, and you might not even know that it's there. And for a home occupation like this, there's a lot of trucks in and out all the time, and there's the outdoor storage. It just doesn't maintain that residential character. That's our biggest concern.
Okay. And just kind of going down the road of hypotheticals here, what if the firewood were stored inside a garage? That make a difference?
That would certainly be allowed. I mean,
and I'm talking for storage or sale, or would the traffic concerns still be there?
Well, there's other regulations other criteria that apply to a home occupation. Like I said, how much area it's taking, like I said, there's a maximum on 500 square feet for a home occupation, the number of traffic trips. So it depends. I mean, we would have to look at that.
Yeah, and what I'm getting at is, if someone is meeting all the other requirements of the home business code, and we simply prohibit cutting of firewood as a home-based business, it seems like all the other regulations would still apply, and any home-based businesses that violate that would still be subject to code. And do we need if someone's keeps a couple cords of wood in their garage and they sell it and it's one trip every, twice a year, would that necessarily be violating the residential character of the neighborhood, as opposed to if they're out there cutting every week? I'm just trying to see where a proper line may fall.
Yeah. It could be possible to meet the criteria. It's not likely, and it hasn't been our experience. But just like there's a difference between, people can have garage sales. You can occasionally have a garage sale. And there's a difference between that and, running a consignment shop out of your garage. You kind of know it when you see it.
Yeah, but the trips and visitations are already limited in the code, right?
Right.
So if someone were violating those, there could be code enforcement actions.
Right.
Yeah, it says in this home occupation, I just had it here, that for traffic trips, the home occupation by itself shall not generate more than 20 vehicle trips a day, except the home daycares may have many trips as required. And it seems like, I mean, just guessing, I would assume that someone selling wood is not going to have more than 20 trips a day.
No, that's true, but it's the type of, again, maintaining that residential character, it's the type of trip.
Right.
And that's for,
I'm just wondering if there's any way, someone's trying to make a living or doing something, and they're trying to accommodate certain codes. They might be able to make it work by following, making the exceptions. I'm just wondering if there's a way to do something like that, but.
We have tried.
Clarification, when you're talking 20 trips, that's 10 in and 10 out, right?
It is, right.
Just so you're clear, it's not 20 different trucks. So.
Well, even 10 for a day, I would assume.
No, I understand, but,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not 20 different trucks. Was this happening for a long time? Was there a business happening in a certain home somewhere in Issaquah for an extended period of time?
It's been an issue that we've been dealing with for a few years, yeah. And there was a period of time where we allowed it as a home occupation, assuming that the criteria would be able to be met, just like you said. And in this particular case, the criteria were not able to be maintained. And so that business license was revoked.
And so if the business license was revoked, I mean, what's the need for legislation on this issue? Is it a continuing?
Like I said, it's more of a clarification, because the code was silent on whether it would be allowed as a home occupation or not, and now we're just clarifying that it would not be allowed.
You said certain aspects weren't able to be maintained. Which aspects weren't able to be maintained in this particular case?
The outdoor storage piece mostly.
Does say if you built an outbuilding, how does that qualify into indoor or outdoor?
Well, again, if it was in the side or rear, what we're proposing
Yeah.
here is if it was in the side or rear yard, you know, whether it's in a shelter
Yeah.
or not, it wouldn't.
I'm just thinking of like Home Depot, you go and buy one of those $500 sheds and you can put all your wood in there. Does that qualify? What qualifies as indoor or outdoor?
What I have a problem with is the setting by the city of how much firewood you can actually have. I figure that if you can store it neatly on the side or back of your house and you have a big enough area to do that and it's covered up, I'm not sure if I want the city to regulate only 5 cords of wood.
I actually had that same thought, and it occurred to me that there's no provision in there. For chickens, we have a code, 3 chickens per 6,000 square feet of property. And there's no such provision here. You could have acres and still be limited to 5 cords.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and it's where and how it's screened is more important, like I said, than the amount. So again, that's something that
If I go by city code, then I have to go by city code, and it says 5 cords of wood. Therefore, if I lived on 20 acres, I could still only have 5 cords of wood, which doesn't make sense to me. Anybody else have anything? Okay, thank you, Christopher. Don't go away.
I'll be right there.
At this time, it's 6:57. I'm going to open the public hearing. Anybody who wants to speak this evening should be signed up on this list. There are rules that we go by, just like the city council, and that's a maximum of 5 minutes. I think that's a lot of time, so be succinct and tell us what you think and why we should be, what you bring to our discussion. So with that, and since I've opened the public hearing, the first name on the list is John Barrett. Please come to the microphone, state your name and address.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is John Barnett. I reside at 20905 Southeast 83rd Place in Issaquah. It's approximately 3.5 acres, and I've been there for in excess of 7 years.
Could I ask you to speak a little louder?
Yes. Is that better?
Yes, please, thank you.
Sorry about that. My great-grandfather was John J. Golden, the founder of Goldendale, Washington. And one of his many accomplishments in his lifetime was the procurement and sale of 1,000 cords of firewood at $10 a cord, shipped by barge to San Francisco in the 1870s. A little bit of that is filtered down through the family generations. I'm the person that's the subject of this proposed ordinance. With it, I was granted a business license and did my level best to comply with it. It's very difficult to do that when you're your code requirements for screening when your screening is vandalized, consistently taken down, and harmed when your vehicles are vandalized. I've been the subject of ridicule, scorn, lawsuits. The list goes on and on. You know, I've heated for wood for most of my adult life and had it growing up as a child. And I remember making trips down to Madison Park to buy it with my father. It's just been a way of life for many, many years. And as somebody who suffers from disabilities, including post-traumatic stress, I'm limited in what I can do. And firewood was an option for me with it. That we did our best to put that together and help serve people throughout the community, and made every effort to comply with everything that was put forward. You know, it's one thing after another. It's, you know, this rule, and then, you know, you get sued, and then you get threatened, and then your property gets vandalized, and people physically block your road access while you are attempting to go to an urgent medical appointment, to the point of where the police were called. People didn't move because it's a private road. They couldn't enforce it. Paramedics were called because of a previous cardiac enzyme that I have, and incredible chest pain as part of this experience. They finally let the ambulance through. I concur wholeheartedly with you that, from some of the comments that have been made, that the sale of firewood as a home occupancy is in fact an ability to make function. But it's hard when people go on a witch hunt to trip you up at every point, to the point where they swear at my children, flip them off. My sons, 12-year-old twins, who are developmentally disabled because they were premature, ask me time and again, "Dad, why is that lady taking pictures again?" I couldn't answer it for her. With regard to the proposed code amendment, the amount of 5 cords of wood is both arbitrary and capricious. It is a lot for some people and nowhere near enough for others. I know of dozens and dozens of people within the city limits of Issaquah who, by need or by choice, heat slowly and exclusively, or almost so, with firewood. And many of those people go through 7, 8, 10, and even 12 cords a year. I myself, my home, I have 2 stoves and early 70s insulation, so it's kind of like heating the world. I go through between 10 and 12 cords per year. As part of the discussion previously, with working with the city, that a reasonable amount of firewood to have was a 3-year supply, and whether that was 1, 2, 10, or 30, then that was it. There's several other problems with the proposal. Stacked and elevated, with it, how does it elevate? What's the requirement there? I don't understand how wood can be a safety issue. Visual nuisance is a matter of interpretation. There are hundreds of people within the city that would be affected by this proposal. And just taking a random notation, when I came down to the meeting tonight, I left my home at the address specified, and by the time I turned right on State Route 900 and got to Tallis, I noticed that there were 5 homes that would be in violation of the proposed ordinance. 3 of them are on my street. This is, a long, contentious disagreement, which I don't understand. It has been an epic source of stress. It's personally affected my ability to earn and provide an income. And as proposed and stated in writing to Mr. Wright, that I also provide wood for my ex-wife and 3 minor children, all of whom have disabilities. It's a primary source of heat for them, And what I can't do economically, at least I can provide that for them. HopeLink, for example, through their many programs, I'm sure everybody's aware of HopeLink. If not, you should be. One of the things that they provide for people who have a primary source of heat as wood, they will provide a wood grant for those who are in need. And many times, those amounts are in excess of 5 quarts. So the implementation of this would directly affect people in need, who need help the most from being able to comply with keeping their families warm through the cold of winter. I truly believe that there's a reasonable solution both to the home occupancy issue and reasonable codification of what we're doing as far as how we want to define what's stored. You're going to hear a vastly different story in a few minutes from whoever else is here with it, but this whole process has taken a severe toll on my health, my ability to earn an income, and has eaten up tens of thousands of dollars in useless expense, hundreds of hours of time, all for I don't know what. I would implore a more reasoned discussion about some form of regulation that incorporates the needs of hundreds of people in the city of Issaquah with regard to how they can heat their homes and keep their families warm, rather than have an arbitrary and capricious setup that is clearly targeted at me, yet affects those who need it most, the elderly, those who heat their homes with wood. And when you keep wood, by stacking it, neatly, the problem that lies with that oftentimes when it's green is defined as having a moisture content when it's just cut down, which is approximately 50%. When you stack it neatly and tightly at that stage of its preparation, you get many different things. And at the end of the time, none of it is usable firewood because it grows mushrooms, it's subject to mold, and it doesn't dry out.
So I just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Your 5 minutes is up, but how big is your property?
The property is approximately 3.5 acres.
Are your neighbors the same size properties?
I honestly do not know.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
One last comment, if I might.
Okay.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight, and I would like to thank Mr. Wright for his courtesy in sending me a copy of the proposed amendment and notice of the meeting. Otherwise, I would not have known about it. There's a quote that is attributed to a Canadian that seems relevant here tonight. And it states in part, they say there are strangers who threaten us. Those who know what's best for us must rise and save us from ourselves. Quick to judge, quick to anger, slow to understand. Ignorance, fear, and prejudice walk hand in hand. It's attributable to a writing called Witch Hunt. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Burnett, I actually have one follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
With the business as it was taking place, was
Yes.
there, what was the nature of the cutting of wood that was taking place on the property?
There was no meaningful cutting per se as an effort to mitigate noise with it when we would have rounds of firewood brought in, essentially in the size of 16 inches in length. We would split that by hand to keep the noise down. On occasion, maybe 3 times, 4 times over the course of a 6-month period, we might have something that was a little too long, and you might need a chainsaw to cut that into a reasonable length.
And what times would those chainsaw cutting activities take place?
Never before 9 a.m. and never after 5:30. A chainsaw from a decibel noise rating level is similar to a lawnmower.
Can you tell me where this is again, your address?
Yes, sir. It is 20905 Southeast 83rd Place.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Is this an audio recording?
Yes,
Thank you. Great.
video, yes.
How do we request a copy of it?
If you go online,
Is there?
it will be online in a few days. It
Great.
will-
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
20905.
The next person that is signed up to talk
Yeah.
is Garth, and I can't read his name, so please come to the microphone, introduce yourself, and state your address.
Hi, my name is Garth Doverspike. I live at 20926 Southeast 83rd Place in Issaquah, and I'm a neighbor of Mr. Barnett's. Can you hear me?
I don't know if I'm losing my hearing or if it's.
I have a hard time hearing them.
Is that better?
I
I have to lean forward, but that's okay. We have other neighbors here as well. Let me start by saying, by thanking you for allowing me to speak, first of all. And second of all, Mr. Barnett has a compelling story, but hopefully you have ways of fact-checking that story. And parts of it. For instance, lawsuits, you should be able to look up. There has been no lawsuits against him. He has filed no police things on vandalism and things like that. And you can actually, hopefully, check with the compliance office about times that he's actually told them that he's not running a business. And if you look at that, we had Craigslist listings that show that he was. So then he finally admitted he was running a business, and that's when they forced him to start the business license process and going through all that. So there are, let's just say he's not entirely straightforward with his story. And hopefully you're able to check that out. I'd also like to point out that we're not talking about a small amount of wood in here, right? You have the pictures. They stack up taller than a man. They go easily 30 feet. Easily 60 feet. This is a massive amount of wood that we're talking about. So this isn't some small business. He's in and out round trips during the winter, fall, probably 30 or 40 times. During the summer, it does slow down. Last time we talked to him about this, he claimed that he wasn't doing any business at all, even though it's the same number of trips, the same amount of wood that he was doing when he was running a business. And so right now he's still doing the exact same activity. So it sounds really suspicious, right, when he says he's not running a business and yet the activity level is staying the same. They mentioned the character of the neighborhood. I don't think anyone would want what's going on here in their neighborhood. I honestly don't. I think anyone would have an issue with it. Safety and security was brought up. If you read our brief, you'll see there are safety and security issues. There are fire hazards. He actually leaves electrical cords and gas stacked in with his wood. There are health issues around, and King County actually talked to this. They said that the firewood and the associated work on cutting it up creates material that attracts rats because they can build nests in it and they can find shelter in the wood. So it attracts rats. Obviously, rats are a concern for a disease of many kinds. And the other aspect is he leaves debris on the road. I have to stop on a regular basis and pick up not just wood hunks, but sometimes tools, things like that, which, late at night, that's not a good thing because sometimes we can't see it and our cars run over it. So I do believe there's safety and security issues with this. And I believe, like it says in the brief, in any place where you find this kind of business, that's going to be a natural side effect, right? If you have a truck that's going down the road, you're going to lose part of the load. And in a residential neighborhood, you're just not expecting to run into that. It's not something that you would expect. So Do you have, oh, I wanted to make another point. So there was the 500 square foot, right? That's part of the standard code. So this is well and beyond and expanding that. So, you know, if we kept to the 500 square foot and as many cords as you can fit into that to run a business, you know, that's fine, right? That's reasonable to me. And around heating, for just home use, I used to have a 2,000 square foot house that I heated with wood out in Monroe. And I could heat that house with about 2 cords. It wouldn't quite go through 2 cords in a winter. And that's even when the snow was on, right? So that's a pretty big year. So I don't buy this 10 cords. I don't know anyone who burns 10 cords of wood in a winter. So I just don't believe it. And even if it's true, so haul it in twice, right? To me, 5 cords sounds like a reasonable number.
So from what I understand from previous, Barnett has been doing this for a long time.
Yes, we've been actually working with the city for a long time on this issue, and he actually didn't do it for the first 2 years he was there. So there was probably about a 2-year period where he wasn't doing this, and then he started doing it, and there was probably, we talked to him a few times about the property damage he was doing on the road. We asked him to not, he said he operated during certain hours. That's not true. He woke people up probably 6:30 sometimes in the morning. And sometimes it goes on to 9 o'clock at night. I mean, he has workers there, right? So even if he's not doing it, his workers are doing it. This isn't a small-scale business. I mean, it's not huge, right? But it's not a small-scale, I sell a cord of wood once a month business. It's large-scale. He has had large commercial trucks. You see a picture of what he has right now, which is a large pickup truck with a fairly substantial trailer that he's built the sides up on so that he can haul a lot of wood, and it does a lot of damage to the road.
So just to be clear, all the wood is being brought in, bigger chunks, and everything then gets chopped.
And it gets
on
chopped
the
down.
property,
That is
and
correct.
then goes back out.
That's correct.
with
And you can see the
different
picture of
trucks.
the wood splitter there. He runs a wood splitter and chainsaws both.
So can you address the noise issue?
Yeah, like I was saying, you know, sometimes it starts as early as 6:30 in the morning. Sometimes it goes to 9 o'clock at night. And we live actually almost on the far end, as far away from him as you can get on our road. And you can hear it clearly. In fact, you can even hear him when he's loading the wood. We know when because he's throwing it in. So we hear the boom, boom, boom as he's loading the wood.
I was going to ask what kind of noise. So,
Yeah.
but chainsaws?
The chainsaw we can hear, he likened it to a lawnmower, and if you've ever operated a lawn, you know people don't wear ear things when they operate a lawnmower, right? You do wear ear protection when you operate a chainsaw if you're smart, because otherwise you'll destroy your hearing. Yeah, not equivalent at all.
Have you had, or others in your neighborhood had any negative impact on the value of your property, your home, sales, whatever the case might be?
I certainly couldn't prove it, but my question would be, would you want to move into a neighborhood that had that kind of a visual blight on it? You know, I haven't gone and asked a realtor to tell me what impact that has, so I couldn't quantify it, but I could tell you if I was thinking about moving into that neighborhood, I wouldn't do it now, right? Me personally.
As a realtor, I agree.
As a realtor, you would move in?
Well, I wouldn't, but
Oh, you wouldn't.
I'm saying that this could have a serious impact on the value of the house.
I would
And-
assume so. I would think
and
so.
Even though I appreciate somebody having a business and trying to feed their family and do the right thing, it sometimes can't be at the detriment of the neighborhood, of the people that live there, of the roads, of all of the things that happen. So I'm just surprised that it has gone on so long, and nothing has been really, I mean, he hasn't stopped, so nothing has been enough to stop this, so.
what's the topography there? As in, is it hilly? I mean, is there access to a backyard, or is it, I mean, does it have to be in the front yard? I guess,
Well, he has, so he rents the house. It's about, like you said, about 3.5 acres. That's not unusual in that. It varies. It's right now 5 acres grandfathered, but I mean, 5 acres is the zoning, but a lot of the properties have been grandfathered in, so are slightly less than that. I couldn't quote the exact sizes, but to answer your question, he has about 3.5 acres. He could, except he would have to probably chop down trees, and this is, I'm not sure how many trees he can actually chop down because we're near a stream, so there's some protection going on. You know, you'd have to look into the details around that. But right now, it is all in the front, and it is all unscreened.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys.
Anybody else?
No. Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
I didn't sign up.
That's okay. Come on up. Just state your name and your address.
Hi, my name is Todd Johnson. My address is 20920 Southeast 83rd Place. I'm a neighbor of both Garth and Brooke and Mr. Barnett. So we actually live on the hill, on a hillside of side of Squawk Mountain, past Mr. Barnett's property. So we go up and down past it every day. When he's loading and unloading his trucks, they frequently block the road. And I don't think any of us really begrudge him, you know, his livelihood. It's just a completely inappropriate scale business to have in a neighborhood. I mean, you can see from the photos that Brooke provided, he has very large trucks with trailers that he stacks enormous amounts of wood onto and drags them up and down the road all day, every day. And this is a single lane dirt road. So this is a significant issue for us in that, you know, we're not on a paved 2-lane road where cars can get by each other. So I didn't have any prepared statements or anything, so I could answer any questions that you have. Well, one thing I would add, so the question about his property size is approximately 3 acres. Only a very small percentage of that is cleared flat land. It's mostly hillside and heavily wooded. So all of the wood that he's storing is hence concentrated into a very large pile in the front of his house.
Okay. And so if the screening requirement, at the very least, were made part of the ordinance, that would sufficiently take care of the issues with the business as a whole, is that?
I'm not certain how you would screen wood on this scale. I mean, it's really hard to even picture, even from the photos there. It's actually, you can see it from Google Earth pictures very nicely. It's just this huge circular pile of split wood in the front of his house. And there was some brief attempt to screen it by, he mentioned that he had put up a fence and someone vandalized it, and the gate he put up was just a piece of plywood hinged to a 4x4 sunk in the ground, which promptly fell down. And it's been laying on the side of his driveway for about the past 9 months. So screening has not proved to be very useful so far.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do have a question. Can you address, I think the understanding was that a lot of people have wood stacked in their backyards in that neighborhood. Can you address that?
I don't believe anyone on our road or in the immediate area has any sort of wood stacked up anywhere that I've seen. Certainly not on our road. Thank you.
I've just got 2 more pictures that I'd like to enter into the record that were given to me by the neighbors, and it again shows kind of the scale of the trailers that are in and out of there and the size of the pieces of wood that are stored there that clearly need to be cut up.
Oh, please.
Just kind of good to be up here and have somebody listen to such an important issue that's impacted our lives for a very long
You have
time.
to speak at the microphone and your
My
name.
name's Brooke English, and Christopher Wright has worked with us for a couple years now, and he's done a really good job. And every time we try to make some headway or make some sense out of this situation, we can't. And this issue is so important because it can happen anywhere. And one of the things that impacted me was when he told me, you can't do anything. We're on a private road, and they can't regulate me. And so every time we've followed the city's instruction and tried to resolve this peacefully, he does what he wants and he gets around it. And he knows that on a private road, we don't have everything. The police won't do so much. The damage to the road, the city doesn't come out and fix it. We have to fix it. We have to pay for it. And this can happen anywhere. And if people think they can move into Issaquah and they can do this, and this is how it's done, so it is important. The screening, if it worked, it would have worked when Christopher put it in place as one of the mandates. It didn't work. It won't work. It has to be in the side yard or the backyard. It has to be limited wood because this is a nightmare.
And just for the record, could you state your address as well?
20926 Southeast 83rd Place. And there's only about, we're a small neighborhood. We're only about 7 houses on that road, and it is a dead-end road. If we could bypass him, if we could go around him, if there was any way that we could not be involved with this situation, every one of us would do it.
And I heard the mention of litigation involving this topic. What's been the outcome of that?
So what happened was, it was difficult because Christopher Wright, he had, in order to resolve the situation, we had gotten the city involved. Like, what can we do? How do we figure this out? And John, or Mr. Barnett, had decided to go legal and apply for a business license, and I guess he did a good job. We didn't go to the meetings. We didn't realize this thing was going to get quite so crazy. And when they passed the business license, Christopher Wright notified us. We were on vacation, actually, and it had a time factor in it. We had to, within 3 days, was the appeal period, or we had to file suit. And so we're like, we don't have 3 days. I think we had like 24 hours. We contact our neighbors. We contact everybody. We're like, this is insane. They're going to tell them this is okay. And we know it's not. I mean, we have serious medical issues on our road. It's not if an emergency, medical emergency will happen, it's when a medical emergency will happen. And that's how serious the medical issues are on our road. So we had to make a choice. We had to say, are we going to let this stand, or are we going to hire an attorney? So we called an attorney and we said, this is the situation. We just want to stop them and have a voice in this and have this make sense. That's why the legal papers were filed. And we actually filed against the city of Issaquah as well. We put everybody in it, trying to show everybody how serious we were. And we are serious, but we've tried to work with Christopher in a different way and put that on the back burner. Will it work to go to court? It's a long, protracted, expensive thing. Mr. Barnett, it's just better if we can do this peacefully, and it's better if the codes make sense so that this doesn't happen again to anybody. Because the noise, the stress of our neighborhood, the traffic being blocked almost daily from going up and down our road, they ran into him this morning going to work. That was about 7 a.m. Yeah, and he'd sent a picture a couple days ago. Same thing, he was blocking the road. This is daily. And the noise, we go to sleep to it, we wake up to it. They're always doing something with the wood. They're slamming it in the truck, you can hear it. They're chainsawing, they're chopping it. I must be over my 5 minutes now, right? So thank you for having us. I hope you seriously consider it, because
I'm going to ask this one more time. Is anybody, not you, although you can come back, is there anybody else that would like to speak? You're sure? Just making sure. Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:30. I do have one question for Christopher. If you do pass this and enter this into the code, what is the city's responsibility and how will you act differently to enforce it to protect the neighbors that you haven't done?
It will be a lot more clear what is enforceable and what's not. You know, there'll be clear limits on obviously where the wood can be stored so that the piles in the front yard would not be acceptable. Every time we've, you know, he does not have a license to operate a business right now because we revoked his home occupation business license. And so when we've approached him and we've said, you know, what is all this wood? He said it's for his personal use. And you see the pictures, you know, but we would have to go through some, you know, sting investigation or something to prove otherwise, right? But he says it's for his personal use. So again, that's where the putting a cap on the limit, what's a reasonable amount for somebody to have for their personal use, that's where that came from. So what it does, it gives us something that we can point to in black and white in the code of what he's either meeting or not meeting.
There must be something in code somewhere that as one resident cannot interfere with legal access to a neighbor's property, causing consternation. I mean, I wouldn't like to have piles of wood in my neighbor's backyard. I definitely want the rats, but I look at blocking the road as more of a danger than having the wood there. And I would think that the city could work in that direction to say, hey, this is causing a hazard to the rest of the neighborhood, preventing legal access to their properties.
Yeah, and as they mentioned, it is a little tricky here in that it's a private road. So the city has real kind of limited enforcement ability for what happens on that road. So that's kind of it's a real issue for them, but it's not something that the city has a lot of ability to enforce.
So is there a homeowner association then? Who is responsible for the?
Yeah, I don't think there's a
maintenance?
formal association, but I think there's some kind of loose joint maintenance agreement of some kind. But
Has there been discussion with the homeowner, not just him? What has that conversation been like?
We've tried many things, and dealing with the homeowners is one avenue that we've tried, and they haven't been interested so far in enforcing anything.
Oh, he's renting the property.
He's
correct?
renting, that's right.
And has your conversations been with him or with the owners of the home?
With both.
And how do the owners respond? I think you may have answered that.
Yes, they're basically non-responsive.
Are they saying, we're okay with it, we don't want to lose this renter, or?
Essentially.
Okay.
By lack of doing anything about it, they're basically saying that, yeah.
So it's still in the city of Issaquah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're wondering where this is, it's off of SR 900 at the south end of town, essentially across the street from Tallis is where this is. There's a few rural streets down there,
By the
and it is
nursery.
within the city
On
limits.
the side of the nursery.
Yeah. mhm.
of Mountain.
But see, I don't understand, because it is in the city. It is a city, whether it's a private road or not, that property is in the city. And as a city, you should have the right to protect the people who live in the city, whether you own that road or it's a private road. Am I wrong?
Well, it's private property, and you're right. I mean, the road is private property,
Right.
and
Who does the road belong to?
There.
To them? To
the neighborhood.
a joint ownership?
Right.
property line, and we have worked with the police, and we
You-
worked with the fire.
Would you come to the microphone if you're going to speak?
Yeah. So it's a joint ownership. It's an easement that everyone shares. And as I was saying, we have worked with the police and we have worked with the fire department saying that this is a hazard. And neither one has really, the police is, it's a private road, we have no jurisdiction. And the fire department was like, well, they're not violating any of our codes that we can go in. And I said, well, what about electrical wires and gas cans in the same vicinity as wood? Doesn't that sound dangerous? And it was like, well, we don't have direct codes that deal with that. And what about blocking the way, right? And well, we don't really, I mean, if there was a fire, if it was marked as a fire thing, we could go in there and get rid of them, but it's not a red curb, right? So they didn't have anything that they could do for us, basically.
So will this change affect any of what we've just been talking about, or just work on how you store firewood? It won't have any, it won't change any of the ability of the fire or anybody else to,
Yeah, the road and access issues are not being addressed in this, no.
So,
But like I said, what it will limit, hopefully, is the number of truck trips in and out of there, how many people are
how can
coming and
you-
going.
How
And
can you limit that?
well, by limiting the amount of wood that's there and the fact that it needs to be stacked and stored around the outside would alleviate the mounds of wood in the front yard, and, you know, just the, and if it can clearly only be wood for personal use and not to be sold, then, you know, any amount of trucks in and out of there.
But you're regulating the road.
The problem with the road seems to be what he's doing with his property. So if you can regulate what happens on the
No,
property.
I understand, and I understand where you're getting to. It's just the fact that if you regulate the number of trucks, then you're regulating basically the road, so, okay.
Yeah, and my biggest concern is that we're using, you know, a citywide code process for one person and sweeping up unintentionally others in that process. I mean, we don't have a cords per square foot limitation. I do think that we need the neatly stacked, elevated. The problem with rats is a hazard. I think there are other things that could be done, things such as, you know, even if we allow a business limiting cutting hours or eliminating cutting completely and allowing just storage and sale. But we could also impose gross weight limits for trucks, which, along with the number of trips, would alleviate some of these road blockage issues. We could eliminate the use of log splitting machines for any home-based business, and we could regulate as a safety issue, which could give some teeth to the fire department. If we looked at the fire code, placement of wood shavings, gas setbacks from any wood or wood shavings, and use of electrical equipment around any flammable material, which could provide some enforcement ability as opposed to just treating it like a straight code violation. It would then become a safety issue with some potential enforcement issues. Things like eliminating the use of trailers for any home-based wood business. But I think if we just take a, you know, huge axe to the code for one person, that we could have some unintentional consequences, and that concerns me.
I would concur with that. I feel like, I don't know if this issue has ever come up with anyone else. I would assume that it hasn't. So making one specific code requirement for one individual, yeah, it doesn't make complete sense to me. And it seems as if we need to have a clear-cut way, no pun intended, of enforcing something that if there's violations right now that he's obviously in violations of certain things, and there hasn't been an enforcement. If he doesn't have a business license, there's ways to prove, ways to go about that. I just feel more comfortable about doing something like that before we, change a whole zoning code. That's my feeling.
I understand what you're saying. My concern is that if this is allowed to continue with no regulation, you have opened the door to a tremendous number of other violations of such kind of property usage. The gentleman sat here and said, I don't have that much wood in my yard.
And then we said,
BS. Okay? Now, I don't know when you folks moved in there, whether he was there before you were there, okay? But his presentation wasn't factual, I don't believe, okay? And I was in a neighborhood many years ago in Redmond that didn't have control over what went on in your driveway or your garage. And there was a individual who bought the home, but he did auto repair in his garage and in his driveway at the entrance of the development. And the values of the properties, the noise, that it was, I mean, I experienced it, so I'm kind of in your shoes. Not this type, but, you know, when you've got somebody who's got, you know, pickups up on racks in the back, in the front driveway of their home. And this was a reasonably new development, but there was no controls for maintenance. Now they've changed that. Just because this is out in the hills, I don't think we ignore it because it's out somewhere else out in the timber and wouldn't impact Trace Ox or some other neighborhood. Is what you're gonna have happen is have somebody come in and say, well, you're allowing this out there, I'm gonna do it here. I think I'll open up and start repairing my automobiles in my garage. I don't know. I'm challenged by this.
Yeah, well, and that comes down to an enforcement issue to me. I mean, we already have provisions for a business license requirement, which it appears that he's violating. We have requirements that it not raise dust, which it appears that he's violating with the sawdust. Outside storage, he's violating the outside storage provisions. I mean, there are already mechanisms in place that just aren't being enforced.
But why aren't they being enforced?
That's what I feel is.
Yeah.
the main concern.
Why are the existing rules not being enforced?
If we throw more rules on, it just comes down to additional rules that wouldn't be enforced.
Well,
No, he's not going to move.
But we have tried many different ways of enforcing, and it comes down to what is the police department willing to do with regard to their other priorities. Is this a priority for them? What is the court? What's the city's attorney willing to do? To take up court time, and so right now there's no code that says he can't have that much wood stacked up in his front yard.
There is one that says he can't have outdoor storage. I mean,
That's for
I can
that's
see
for
your
home occupation.
stacking. Yeah,
that's for home occupation. Which, if you ask him, he says he does not have a home occupation.
Yeah, and that's
so
where I think the stacking provisions. I mean, I do like the stacking provisions. I think that it's a little overbroad in terms of the limitations and no linking to the acreage. I think those provisions definitely. But if you had those provisions as far as stacking back or side yard, would those be enough to engage action? Do you think? I mean,
I think so. Like I said, if it's something that our code enforcement officer can clearly point to and say, you are in violation of this, clearly, without getting into, is he selling it, is he not selling it?
So say if there's another person that lives up on Squawk Mountain and they want to sell some wood, they would be affected by this code. But they want to, maybe there's a way that they can do it and maintain some, nature or maintain the quality of the neighborhood. I'm kind of trying to see from their perspective, they wouldn't be able to run their business anymore.
well, I would think that if you have a couple cords of wood that you're trying to sell on Craigslist, I mean, your neighbors are not going to turn you in, it's going to be just the same as selling a mattress
right,
or
so
selling
that's-
a
that-
car.
right,
So I don't think that this is going to be affecting that. And I'm actually pretty comfortable with having adding to the list, because I mean, you just look through the list. There's a lot of other things that you may have wondered, why is it there? But those are occupations that make noise, that are disruptive, that's it's not a consulting business, somebody on the computer.
I don't see the need to make a law unless it's going to be enforced. So if this person, what you just said, the neighbors won't turn them in. I wouldn't feel.
Until it gets to the point where it's a nuisance,
Right, but we
like
shouldn't
in
make
this
a
case.
law where,
But it just gives another tool in the,
Right,
in
yeah.
order to be dealing with this. So I think that the idea of adding sale of firewood is a good one to this. I'm on the fence about the number of cord of wood, the four, or was it 4 or 5?
5.
Because personally, I have no knowledge of, is it something that, 5 cords, is it something that really is enough or not enough to heat a house over the winter? I mean, I do see the need to not keep bringing wood either. So if you want to, as long as it's nicely stacked and not a nuisance, I'm not sure there that the 5 is necessarily good or bad as a number. But
Right,
yeah.
and the city wouldn't be driving around with a yardstick,
how
It's
many
based on complaints,
How
obviously.
many cords of wood would you say is in this picture?
That sounds like
I don't know anything, I don't know.
So cord of wood is 4 by 4 by 8.
4 by 4 by 8?
So there's probably in that picture.
By 4 by 8.
So that's one cord, 4 by 5. I thought that was the
Right.
5 cords. that
No,
was
that's
it.
one cord.
4 by 4 by 8 is one cord.
Okay, so that's a lot of wood already, so, okay.
So in that picture, I'm guessing.
I'm more
there's
comfortable then.
probably
Okay.
50, 75 cords. And then
The
there was
problem
one-
with you speaking down there is the people
Can't hear you
on,
at home.
Yeah, and just for the record, she had said that appears in the pictures that we have in the record that I believe said approximately 50 cords. Is that
50 to 75.
50 to 70?
75?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, guess.
addressing the number of cords, more than 5. If I did heat my home only with wood, and I had a space to put it, and I got this great deal on 7 cords of wood, I would be in an illegal situation. And so it's nice to, you're going to put something in here, you got to enforce it. And so if you know that somebody delivered 7 cords of wood to me, and the city has the obligation to put a little red tag on my wood or something, I mean, you have to enforce it. And so, I mean, I don't like 48 or 50 cords of wood, but I do have a problem with just limiting it to 5. Are the 99.9% of the people going to buy more than 5 cords? No, but you have to be reasonable in some instances here.
Now, let me ask you this. I mean, one of the key things I talked about was there's no cleared land with which you could store it behind or to the side. If we made this 5 cords per, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 feet of cleared available space, I mean, then you're and keep the back and side requirements for screening from the adjacent properties, kept in the side or rear yard requirements, that would alleviate most of the concerns, at least as far as this particular problem is concerned, but still allow people to have a fair amount. I mean, I think there needs to be a cords per square foot of cleared land requirement, is what I'm saying, I think.
Can you explain the code enforcement process so we can kind of understand? So they're in violation of some codes right now. How do we get to actually be enforced?
Well, the code enforcement, for something like this is done on a complaint basis, right? Like I said, we're not necessarily driving around looking for violators. And how it's done in a case like this is it just needs to be a clear, they need to be violating something that just is clear in black and white in the code. And like I said, right now, there's no limit to where wood is stored or how much you can have or how it's stored. There's no regulation about it at all.
So if there was a regulation that said it had to be in the backyard or it had to be in enclosed, how would it go?
Right, then the code enforcement officer can go out there and it's clear in black and white, you're in violation. Without, having to prove something else, it would be clear. That's what we're trying to get at.
Okay, so then they go out there and they tag it. Well, would the police get involved or? Yeah.
Not necessarily. No, we give the residents a certain period of time to come into compliance, let's say 30 days.
Okay.
And at the end of that 30 days, if they're still not compliant, we can get into a period where they're getting fined every day that they're out of compliance. Okay. That's how it works.
And then what? What's the end of it? It just continues on, and if he doesn't pay, he doesn't pay, but he's...
Well, yeah, then at a certain point, and we haven't gone this far before, so I'm not sure exactly how that would play out or when, but it's at some point then it goes to court, and then it does become a police matter.
Okay.
Anything else?
I like the idea of requiring the aesthetic value of it rather than the quantity of it. Stacking, elevated backyard, screen if possible. A very nice, neat row of stacked wood is actually very nice looking, rather than limiting it to a certain number.
And yeah, like I said, if the 5 cords is an issue, then like I said, that's not a big thing that the city is real concerned about either, that amount. It is mostly where and how it's stored. That's what we're most concerned about.
So I know that you were suggesting some additional things to add to the code. Does anybody else, do you want to be specific of what you think should be added?
I don't know if I interpreted your comments correctly, but I wasn't comfortable with regulating the business of selling wood, but putting requirements in there of maybe putting the wood in the back, screening it or something to make it so that this won't happen again. But I'm trying to think of someone that would want to have a business selling wood at some point.
I think as worded right now, I probably would not vote to advance it. I have the similar concerns over the sale and whatnot, but if our immediate issue is a property like this where it's stored in the front, if we were to keep 1807-205, either removing or modifying the quantity issue and striking the last sentence, or substantially changing requirements on that, I don't think I would vote for an outright ban on the storage and sale of firewood as a business either. But I think it might be simpler for tonight, for the purposes that we're discussing, to table the occupational issue and stick more with the storage issue as it pertains to the code enforcement.
Can I comment?
Why not?
Thank you. My worry about this is John has shown amazing resiliency in being able to avoid the letter of the law, or even when he's violating the law, knowing what laws he can violate and not get caught up in it. If you don't control the amount of wood, if you don't control, somehow come up with a way of controlling that, He will continue to still have traffic coming in and out. I mean, maybe he'll clear area in the back, maybe the visual disruption will go away, the visual thing will go away. Although in that property, since we're only encouraging screening in the code, there really is no way for him to effectively screen that property unless he left a barrier of trees and went back somehow behind the trees. But my worry is that you'll still have a ton of traffic coming in and out. Again, 20, 30 trips a day, that's round trips, right? So 40 to 60 a day.
And that's covered currently under the code.
It was 20.
If it's a home occupation, there is a limit on the number of trips. But
Yeah.
again, he doesn't have an approved home occupation.
Yeah, he'll always say, I'm not doing this for business, right? And the police aren't willing to do a sting, right, on this, so.
So there are no limits for residents on the number of in and out?
So I just wanted to share that worry with you.
No limits on the number of vehicle either, that each residence can, I could have 25 of my best friends come in and out of my house all day long without anybody. I remember those.
This says, regulate home occupations because of the potential impact to the surrounding neighborhood. I mean, there are things in here that address more than stacking of wood. Or are these stuff that's already in the code and we're just adding at the end of? Okay, so these are already in the code and not being enforced.
As they apply to a home occupation.
Yeah, but, if I take this as his, this is an ad for the sale of wood. If this is indeed him, he is working without a business license, and he should be shut down.
Is there a way to go around the state of Washington Department of Revenue? Check and see if he's paying his B&O taxes?
Well, I don't want to.
Is there a way as a planning policy commission we can order a sting?
I'll just say, we have talked to the police department, and we have determined that a code amendment like this one would be the most efficient way to enforce.
Okay, so the police department has stated that if it is exactly the way the new code is written, gives them more opportunity to supervise and.
Well, we would be able to enforce it with our Development Services Department code enforcement and not depend on the police, basically.
Is there a way, oh, no, never mind.
I'm on the board of our homeowners association, and we have the ability within the HOA to limit the parking of certain vehicles out on the street based on the agreement that was made with the HOA to do so. And we have a process that we go through if we have to enforce it, and it works. So if a HOA can do it, why can't a city?
You're smiling. Would you like to form an HOA so that, and record a document so that,
About something complicated.
no, it's not complicated.
Actually, it is a little complicated to form an HOA after the buildings are up, because while Washington state law declares, what an HOA can do and what it can't do, there is no law stating how you form one. So you kind of have to do it when the community goes up, or get everyone in the community to buy into it. I don't think we're going to get John's homeowners to agree to.
Everybody.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be unreasonable here. Come on, guys, you gotta help me. Okay,
We've tried most of the paths that you're talking
Yeah, I
about.
know.
We've tried all kinds of things.
there are other specific occupations that are called out in the code, like dog kennels. You know, you can't.
All engine repair.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's not specifically calling out someone who sells firewood any more so than somebody who does a dog kennel. I mean, there's a rules and regulations that have to be, followed in the code, and this is just adding. You know, when cities are formed, some things don't exist. And then all of a sudden, you have the code allows a certain type of building in in a residential area that doesn't fit in with the neighborhood, but it is still built to code. And so the city changes the code so it doesn't happen again. So things are always in flux and moving. Give me your opinion.
Well, I have heartburn, as everybody else does, with the number. But I'm not sure that's going to be a big issue. And I would think overall, I think you could set 5 boards, and with everything else that we normally do, if for some reason the city would start getting a lot of complaints that I can't store my firewood, et cetera, that could always be changed. And I think that this is no more egregious than small engine repair or painting boats or cars or anything like that in a neighborhood. And I would approve it.
Same here. Sale of wood fits very well in that list in terms of the type of noise, visual, traffic kind of impact that is associated with the other occupations that are not allowed on the list. The only thing is the 5 chords, and that's not a major. I mean, from what I hear, it just sounds like it's one that if you have 5.5, somebody's not going to come after you for that. And 2, if it is really 4 by 20 by 8, it's quite a bit of wood.
32 square feet.
Does anybody else have a comment before are you willing to vote on the code adjustment?
Break it down.
Doesn't
We'll do each one.
Issaquah have like a history of logging and selling wood? I mean, isn't that like our history or something? I don't know. I'm just
Logging town,
No.
yeah.
No?
It's a logging town.
It's not in a residential area, it's not in our history.
If it's not,
I don't
Not
think
for
so.
the last 100 years anyway, or 50 years.
Okay, we have 2 things on, that we had discussed this evening. One was the firewood, and I need a motion to approve as written. Can I have a motion?
To approve the all 1807, 205?
Yes. The code, the change in the code, the addition to add firewood to the present code.
I move.
Second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed?
nay, I am opposed.
As currently written.
Yes.
Okay, so there are 3 yeses and 2 nos.
Or yes.
4 yeses.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. We got to do the,
Yeah. Second thing on our plate this evening is approval of the changes to the
wetland reading.
wetland reading and the change to correspond with the state's adjustment in wording. Do I have a
That we've-
motion?
I move that we approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Are there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you very much. It was a great discussion, and I hope the city understands that we are trying very hard to bring out everything, and that
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thank you so much for your
For all
comments. It
your
was really helpful in
presentation.
helping us
Very much.
understand.
I really appreciate you guys considering this.
Member goes to the city
I know you
council.
guys had great conversation, and I know you're trying to do what's right
Yeah, thank you.
It's really hard when you have one side, you have the other side, and you got to bring them together in some way. So, but again, thank you for comments.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Next on, what?
Sorry it took so long.
Oh, that's all right. Few things.
Chantel?
The second one, motion second.
Poor Trish.
Okay.
She's ready.
And our many hours of discussion on the transportation program for the city. Gary Costa, our transportation manager, has an update on the present TIP.
Great, thanks a lot. My name's Gary Costa. Nice to see everybody. I see some new members I haven't met before. This is my 16th year in a row of making the presentation. This is actually my last one. So I'm moving on.
All the project's going to be finished, so you don't have to do it anymore.
Well, that'd be great, wouldn't it? Overnight.
A better question is, how many are going to be finished?
How many what?
Are going to be finished?
Oh, well, we'll have at least 2 or 3. So this is the 2016-2021 Transportation Improvement Program. First, I just wanted to mention that, this is the TIP, and the reason why we're here is because the state law requires that we have a TIP that moves forward that gets adopted by City Council. That the other component that we're not talking about here is the capital facilities plan. And the capital facilities plan is typically the same as this, except that goes through a different process to get submitted to finance, and then the city council will look at the projects and decide what projects they want to move forward and which order they want them in, and they will prioritize those projects. Whereas the TIP, the projects are not prioritized. To be able to use state and federal funding, they must be listed in the TIP. This is the state law that requires this. State federal funding and the half-cent gas tax funding. The federal funding, which is known as Moving Ahead for Progress in the 21st Century Act, and there's also the Transportation Improvement Board funding. Funds that are used for construction projects also need to be on the TIP. The Moving Ahead for Progress for the 21st Century Act was enacted in July 6th of 2012. That program is actually to its end, and now Congress is looking into enacting another 6-year program. We don't know what that is yet. And this was called MAP 21, and it authorized the Federal Service Transportation Programs for highways, highway safety, and transit. This year, when we were processing the 2016 to 2021 TIP, we're coming forward here tonight to the Planning Policy Commission. On May 4th will be the City Council that will have an agenda bill on consent to set the public hearing that will be held on June 1st. And then the city will present the TIP to the Chamber Government Affairs Committee.
Just so people understand what the TIP is, can you?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
The TIP,
The TIP.
Transportation Improvement
Program.
Yeah, I did mention that at the beginning, the Transportation Improvement Program. That's what it stands for. I'm sorry, I always use acronyms. So it'll go forward to the Chamber Governmental Affairs Committee on May 21st, and also that evening, the Council Infrastructure Committee will take a look at it. Then on June 1st will be the public hearing. Once it's adopted in a public hearing, then we'll submit the TIP to the PSRC, stands for Puget Sound Regional Council. And that'll be on June 20th. And then we'll submit it also to Washington State Department of Transportation on June 27th, or by those dates. Typically, it's before that. Now, this is a slide that I bring out every year. We've added a little bit more to it. But during the past several years, the PPC has, asked for certain things to be shown in our presentation. One of them, we've incorporated the charts that show the safety, capacity, and projects that are related to concurrency. It also includes a 20-year, future years project listing that we continue to maintain. In the past, we used to have a CIP or a TIP that included transit and transit supported programs, and those were taken out, and now those are in the operating budget. But we still continue to budget our Route 200 fare box, which makes the route free. And we support the Transit Now Route 269, so the city has a certain amount of costs under $19,000 a year that the city pays for Route 269. We have a new route, 628, that goes from North Bend to Issaquah Highlands, and that route is actually operating very successfully. And we're in the process of working with Metro, and they have committed that they will start they'll start the Route 200, the new extension to Issaquah Highlands, in June of 2015, and by March of 2016, and that service change, it'll be extended to Swedish Hospital.
So, right time to ask a question about transit then?
Sure.
So the 628, is there any plans to make the last part of it, the Issaquah Highlands part, permanent at some point as opposed to having it on demand?
You mean the portion that goes up into the community? No, that'll continue to stay, as far as we know, as a dial-to-ride route. So, yeah.
Do you have any report on how successful that
All I know is that
segment
it's
is working?
been successful. I don't know the numbers offhand. We also include non-motorized improvements in the TIP through the Complete Streets program. Complete Streets program is where we provide improvements that include bicycle, pedestrians, everything which makes it complete beyond vehicles. It includes crosswalks, and also at traffic signals, the push buttons are audible. We've included the projects that came out of the walk and roll, which is the bike ped plan. And then we have projects that were included in the non-motorized, and actually not in the slide, you can't see it, fell off the screen there. It's non-motorized traffic mitigation impact fees. So input into the TIP has come from many of these sources, requests from public, the city council goals, as I mentioned, the Central Issaquah plan, the walk and roll, which is the bike ped plan. We have a new concurrency program, so we had projects that were analyzed for that new concurrency program, and those projects were listed. And then we have the roadway impact fee and the non-motorized mitigation fee. And then tonight, if whatever comes out of this meeting, the Planning Policy Commission, and then we have the Chamber of Government Affairs Committee coming up, and then the Council Transportation Committee. So here's the slide that you have this in your packet, the spreadsheet. What I'm showing here with the blue colors are new projects that have been added by Public Works Operations for 3 items. One is a Front Street Railroad crossing. The crossing is fairly unsafe for pedestrians and bicyclists, and it needs to be replaced, so this would be funds to allow that to occur. You know, we always need to keep our traffic signals operating and performing correctly, and traffic signal loops do fail at times, so this traffic signal loop replacement would help relieve issues we have with maintenance of our traffic signals. And then we have signal poles painting, which is in the Issaquah Highlands. The poles are flaking, the paint is flaking, and those need to be painted to maintain those. Then the projects shown here in green are new SR 900 and I-90 eastbound ramps. This is to provide an additional right turn lane coming off of I-90 in the eastbound direction to SR 900 to make that a triple left right turn. There's so much traffic that is planned in the 20-year period, and actually now, that improvement is needed. And then the 221st Place Southeast improvements. This project was originally in our North Issaquah roadway network improvements. It was we were moving forward with this a couple years ago as a proposed LID. We changed it from an LID and was able to get an agreement with Costco. However, we needed to reduce the total cost of the project, so 221st was one of them that we took out of the North Issaquah network improvements. So we wanted to have that project in here because there are some improvements that need to be made along there. For instance, sidewalks, continuing the sidewalks where they are missing, and just fixing the alignment of the roadway. And with the creek that'll be moved, the Issaquah Creek will be moved away from 221st, but there were no plans to do anything with the street. So this will help.
Question about that. So is this separate from, I was trying to figure out the number 2, 62nd Street. And I thought both of those, and I'm very happy to see 62nd Street finally. I think every year for the last many years I've asked questions about that area, because I kind of viewed it as the missing link in Issaquah right now in terms of pedestrians and bicycles. So if I remember correctly, that the holdup was always the LID for that area. But now they seem to be separated. Is that the same project in 2 different phases?
So Southeast 62nd will start at East Lake Sam Parkway, and there'll be a new alignment that will basically go through the south end of those storage units.
Okay.
And the intersection point where it will intersect with 4th Avenue or 221st will be about 300 feet north of where that span wire traffic signal is located. That'll be, the new intersection will be a roundabout. From the roundabout going north, we were just going to tie into 221st. So that's, the 62nd project would only tie into 221st. And then on 62nd, continuing to the west, we build a bridge that goes over the creek and a bridge over the wetlands that ties into where Costco is.
Okay. I was wondering what the bridge. Yeah.
That total cost, does that include, is that the total project cost or
Total project
cost of that the city will? Okay. Anyways, you answered
Yeah,
it.
it's total project cost. Which one are you talking about? The 37 million?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 37 million is a total project cost. 24 million of that or so is Costco's.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we have 9.75 million of Transportation Improvement Board money. And the balance of will be city money.
Where, if at all,
Well, actually, sorry, we have $5 million of Department of Commerce funds also.
Okay.
And actually, there's basically hardly any city money in this project.
I see.
where, if at all, and I don't know whose responsibility is, but on the Main Street and 990 accident that happened,
I-90 is all WashDOT.
okay.
That's the state.
So even though the event was a truck coming through on Issaquah's street.
Are you talking about where the truck that hit the girders?
Yes.
What's the question?
Well, is that any responsibility of the city?
No. No, that was a private truck that caused that damage. So they'll be liable under their insurance.
Okay.
And that's the state facility, so it'll be state that would be making the
I
repairs.
thought so, I just was curious.
Right. Then the number 21 in green is the Northwest Sammamish Road and Southeast 56th Street widening. That basically widens the roadway to a 5-lane facility on 56 and Northwest Sammamish Road all the way over to I-90. It's just the amount of development that will occur, and with the Central Issaquah plan, that needs to happen for that to be successful. And then projects 33 through 39 were basically all from the bike ped plan. 33 is the bike ped plan, 34 is bike ped plan, 35 is a traffic signal at 2nd and Sunset. That's out of the update on the concurrency. SR 900 widening is another one that was out of the transportation roadway improvement. The Southeast Black Nugget Road widening is the same thing. 51st Street and East Lake Sam Parkway, that's from the bike ped plan. That's adding, or excuse me, no, that's from the traffic impact fee program to add a left turn lane there. And then the Front Street and Northwest Dogwood Street improvements is to signalize that intersection. Right now it's a pedestrian signal. What's needed there is a full traffic signal to operate the whole intersection. So we go to 61 projects now. We've added 28 new projects. Number 44 is the Northwest Mammoth Road non-motorized crossing. That's out of the Central Issaquah plan. 45 is 56th Street bike lane. Out of the bike ped plan, it was identified to make an improvement across East Lake Sam Parkway between on 56th, so it's adding bike lanes. 46 is the Gilman Boulevard bike lanes and sidewalk. That's basically along Gilman from 900 going east to just past 12th. And Newport Way bike lane ramp. Just north of Sunset, there's a quick divergent of the bike lane that ends on Newport Way. It's actually the trail. It makes a quick turn, and it's not a real safe location for that. So that's we'll correct that. And then Juniper Street sidewalk would install sidewalks on Juniper. 52 is adding a new trail called the West School Trail. 53 is Dogwood Street widening and sidewalk. That's the northeast Dogwood, east of Front Street. 54 is Dodd Field that ties in over by the school. 55 is Squawk Mountain uphill bike lane. Very important project. Adds a bike lane and sidewalk going up the hill. 56 is Tibbetts Park trail connection. 57 Northwest Village Park Drive bike lanes. 58 is on 43rd Way. The bike lane kind of ends and goes into a shoulder, and that will modify that little connection to the roadway. 59 is Laughing Jacobs Trail, which basically parallels 43rd, but it's a trail that's away from the roadway. 60 is the Water Ditch Trail. And 61 is Sycamore Crossing improvements. It's to help get pedestrians across Front Street at Sycamore. With that, this slide is showing the projects by, these are roadway improvement projects for the first 51 projects we're showing here. Then it goes and shows the maintenance of the street overlays, and then all of the non-motorized improvements. And then at the bottom, the other agency projects, that's the SR 900 I-90 eastbound ramps and the Front Street I-90 interchange, for a total of $384,189,000. And in your packet, you had this slide is continuing to show how the projects relate between roadway capacity, transit supportive, sidewalks, and non-motorized. I think since you had that in your packet, I'm going to avoid going through each one of those. And then this is the continuation up through 46. Better can see it. And then here, this through 61. It's a new slide that we've added this year because we wanted to be able to see what projects were related to, whether they're the roadway impact fees that just got adopted this year, and then the multimodal impact fees. So out of quite a few have a yes in both columns, but these are only the ones that I'm showing here are the ones with either a yes in one or the other or both. And it's through 45. This is through 61. And also in your packet, typically we show, compare it to what's in the comp plan. And so we're trying to continue to do that. These projects are the roadway capacity projects. So the right column are the projects listed in the TIP, and those correlate to what's in the comp plan. So you can see what projects we have in the TIP that'll meet the comp plan, and then the bottom half are projects that have been completed. The second slide on that are the projects that are on the non-motorized component, and the same thing about the layout of the slide. This wasn't in your packet, so I apologize. We must have missed this when we got this out, but we've provided this last year, where we're showing in the 6-year period what phase of the project we're going to be in. So whether it's design, right-of-way, or in construction. The East Lake Sam Parkway project, we're getting ready to go out to construction with that now. That hopefully will be done early 2016, not very far into 2016. And the second one, North Issaquah Roadway 62nd improvements, we're in design, and we'll be going through the right-of-way acquisition in 2016, continuing with design, right-of-way acquisition in 2016, and start construction in 2017. And then on the number 3 project, we didn't want to start construction on that roadway until we finish construction on 62nd, because some of that traffic will be using 12th Avenue. Once 62nd is open, then when we go and do work on 12th, it's going to not have such an impact. And then we have the Front Street Railroad replacement this year, or 2016. Street overlays for the next 6 years, annual loop replacements, and then the Holly Street will start design in 2016, complete design 2017, construction 2018. We got the signal pole painting that would occur next year. In 2018, we would start with the design of 3 Trails Crossing. That is, I don't know if you know what that is, but that is just signalizing the Juniper and Gilman intersection. Northwest Gilman safety improvements would occur, design in 2018 and construction 2019. And the Pickering Trail would occur, start design in 2019 and 2020, and construction in 2021. And the Northwest Sammamish Road, missing 11th and 12th overcrossing, that's an important project. We show that in 2020, and right-of-way acquisition 21, the construction would occur in future years. Now we're getting into mostly future year projects. SR 900 Sammamish Road widening, actually that shows construction that should have been a D, should be design. And then the rest of those are all design with going out in the future years. And this is another slide that didn't get into your packet, but we are showing here where the projects are. The C is for capacity related, the N is non-motorized, M is for maintenance, S is safety, D is drainage, and O is operations, PKG is parking. So you can see here basically how these projects will fit into those categories, the type of project that they are. Pretty much a balance of a lot of the categories. Non-motorized is pretty heavy, and capacity is fairly heavy, but we need additional capacity in the city. So, and this is the same, a lot more non-motorized in this screen than on capacity increasing projects. And this is the map that you have, and I'm going to conclude my presentation, and I can answer any questions.
So am I correct that the only I-90 crossing, tunnel, bridge, whatever, going from one side of the city to the other is the 31, which is a non-motorized?
No, there's several. Let me just go back to, let's see.
That would add? additional crossings that would maintain or improve on current ones?
So you have 14 as a crossing, 11th and 12th overcrossing.
So,
We have 31, 10th Avenue, non-motorized
Right.
crossing. And we have another one, Sammamish, number 44, North of Sammamish Road, non-motorized crossing. 31,
and 12?
I think that's it.
First one was 10?
So there's 3. 14 will include bike lanes and sidewalk.
Anybody else?
Gary, we pulled out of the tip the buses.
Right.
Is there any reason why we can't do the same for those, the annual street overlay, the complete street program, and the annual loop replacement?
No, we can't do that because those need to be here to be able to use the state funds, half-cent gas tax money, and other state funding that we might use
Okay, so
that need to be in the TIP.
the other question I've got, and it's one that I understand the whole system. I'm curious as to how the railroad crossing replacement and the signal pole painting, all of a sudden, never seen those before, and somehow $750,000 appeared. Seems to me they should be somewhere further down the line at some of these other projects that are in the perpetual hold pattern should have been able to move up a little bit. And I'm curious as how that happens.
Well, on the
Is it a matter of just that you've got the money available and we're going to do it, or we have to do it? Because I don't think
it's
you
a-
have
that's
to
a-
paint the signposts, the poles.
As far as the railroad crossing improvement, we tried to get a grant. We applied for a grant last year, and we didn't get the grant. And it is at a point they need to overlay Front Street because it needs it, and they need to do this repair on the railroad tracks so they can do the overlay. So it's kind of it's catching up to getting the overlays completed. The signal poles, I think those have, I don't know how long they've been peeling the paint, chipping and peeling, but I don't think it's been very long ago. And we can't continue to let that go because by doing that, we don't want to have to spend a lot more money on having to replace poles.
Okay,
Yeah.
never seen it before, and all of a sudden it's not only on the list, but it's at the top of the list, where there's other projects.
I think before they just put it into the capital request. We left it on the TIP. Typically, we probably wouldn't show it on the TIP. It would just be in the capital facilities plan. But we wanted to mirror image the TIP with the capital facilities plan, so it really doesn't need to be on the TIP. But because we're making it so that the numbers come out the same as a CFP, it's on here.
Okay.
Really doesn't really have it's not a problem being on here.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
A couple questions. First one probably, it really doesn't, well, kind of fits into this. We hear a lot about traffic concurrency. And so are all of these projects looked at and included in our present ABCDEF of traffic concurrency?
So there are, okay, let me put it this way. All the projects in the concurrency are here. There are some projects that are not in here that are not in concurrency because we can't force, or I'm sorry, I'm thinking of impact fees. Sorry. I would say most of these projects are in the concurrency. When I say most, there might be something that's not a capacity-related improvement, it may not need to be in concurrency, but
Polls, I understand that, but it's hard for me to, anyway, that's just one of my, how you judge traffic concurrency, how you judge that building all these new homes and facilities in the city are going to be, you know, the traffic is going to be taken care of. When you put all of these projects in there and they're not going to be even started till 2021, it's hard to justify it now.
that might change. Well, one thing that we didn't do in this 6-year period right now, because we don't normally know with the new change in the impact fees that we're going to be collecting, we don't know how much money the city's going to be bringing in with that. Once we start collecting those fees and that starts increasing, then we'll be able to modify this next year and add more projects. So we'll be able to start adjusting that when we start seeing how much money will be coming in through those impact fees.
Second question is, a lot of the funding sources include the REIT.
Right.
And what's kind of a general idea what you expect to get in every year with your portion of the REIT for capital improvement?
What kind of what, please?
The REIT that you
Right,
get.
real estate excise tax.
Yes. Since I'm so involved with the realtors and the state and their new, coming out with new issues and new way to spend the REIT, I was just wondering as a general idea, how much money the city does get through the REIT in order to be used for capital improvements.
I wouldn't be able to answer the question as far as the amount of money they get, but there's only a certain portion of REIT that can be used on non-motorized and only can be used on non-motorized.
25%
Right.
can go to.
And the other portion can be used on roads, but I don't have that number. I don't know. I could find out for
It
you.
just would be nice. I know there's a lot of looking through all the different projects and where you expect the money to come from. A lot of it is coming from REIT. And wondering how much actually we get a year in order that goes to fund those projects. Anything else? As
Right.
usual, thank you.
Okay,
And I'm
thank you.
sorry that this is going to be your last.
Well, it's been fun to come here and present to you every year, and
Well, congratulations, and I know the
Thank you.
city will miss you, and we appreciate all the stuff that you've done for the
Thanks a
city.
lot.
And all
Appreciate
this, I know it's not going to be done, but you still have to maintain the numbers and put it in the right position, and I know it's a lot of work, so
anyway,
thank you very
thanks a
much
lot.
for your
Appreciate
service.
it. Bye.
With that, is there anything else?
Not on. I'm wondering am I on now?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there's anything you wanted to add. You usually say that everything looks okay. Are there different pieces? Often we add pieces about transit, that we would like some more money going to transit, or we would like them to look at certain things. Is there anything that compelled you in this presentation of things that you would like to add to the recommendation this year? Things that council should know about?
Since you're asking, I would love to see the I-90 crossings, raised
in the
higher
years?
in the priorities. This is a big central component of the central Issaquah plan, and Issaquah needs that connection between the two, the north and the south end of it.
I want it all done now.
Duly noted.
Before Gary leaves.
Before Gary can leave
You
in
can't leave
May.
until it's all done,
Right.
Gary. Sorry, can't do it.
We can use weekend hours
Oh, yeah,
to get it done by May. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, I'll draft that up then. That's all then. Big night.
To make sure that Gary does get his due, and you say has done a great job in.
Okay.
Putting up with the same questions every year.
Every time. I know the three of you haven't had it as long as the three of us have, and we do ask the same questions.
But a lot of the pieces that he presents now is because of PPC, all the different ways of showing, are they safety improvements? Are they capacity improvements? Are they, and also from going from the 6th year to the 20 year, that all came from you guys. because you always said, our plans aren't 6 years, why is the TIP? And so they added that, they don't send that part to the state because the state doesn't require that, but that was all put in because of PPC asking every year, this doesn't fit with what we do. And so you have had a really good relationship with Gary.
One of the changes that the legislature is considering with the REIT is to change the way it's divided, but only if the top 6, the projects are done within 6 years. And so I don't know how that's going to affect how you get money and what you can use the money for. So there's a lot of changes coming down the pipe. So
Interesting.
if there's nothing else, I'm going to
We all set?
close the meeting at 8:40.
Wow, long night.
Thank you so
Busy
much.
night. You guys did really well. There were some tough, we weren't quite sure how the neighborhood, if there would be, a fight in the audience or what that would be like. Christopher was a
Well,
little
I
nervous.
appreciate their comments, but I really appreciate these guys because they really looked at the situation and came up with some thoughts. It's stimulating. That's the part that's fun.
Because it's a hard
What was
thing.
interesting is that the gentleman got up